This video will contain minor spoilers for Omori throughout, such as locations, characters, and early plot points. I will eventually get to major spoilers, but I will give a warning before that in case you want to leave. Please enjoy. Hey! So in 2020, on Christmas Day actually, a new indie game released. One that had been in development for forever. Omori. And I didn't know about it. Seriously, I had never heard of the game and knew nothing about its release. But you know who did? My brother. He just randomly saw it on Steam after release, and knowing close to nothing about it, bought it. He played it, enjoyed it, and that was that. A while later, I don't know the exact date, I decided to buy it for myself, since I heard it was similar to Undertale, my previous favorite game of all time, plus I remember my brother liking it. So I bought it, played through it, and I barely paid attention. Yeah, pretty much immediately after playing it, I forgot everything that happened, I guess because I was spaced out, I don't know, it was weird. A year or two later, I remembered the game's ending, which is like the one thing I did remember from the game, and wanted to show my mom. Yes, seriously, that is the actual reason. But the ending doesn't hit as hard if you don't have full context, so for some reason, I decided to play through the entire 30-hour game with her just to show her the ending. I have no clue why my mom agreed to this, she's a real trooper. And I guess I should be thankful for her, because without her, I likely never would have replayed it, and it's a good thing I did replay it because, finally, I loved it. I really loved it. It went from a game I barely remembered to my new favorite game of all time. I was obsessed for a couple of months. I bought merch 100% of the game 3 times across like 15 playthroughs. It was a lot. Being my friend around this time was probably unbearable. So why do I love this game so much? Well, that's what I'm here to explain. Why Omori's characters, story, messages, gameplay, why it all works so well for me. So I guess that's all I really have to say for intro purposes. Here's why Omori is my favorite game ever. Now, finding out how to start this video was hard. Do I dive right into the story, the gameplay, maybe this one NPC used as a single line of dialogue, the music? And I eventually decided we should start with presentation. Holy shit, I love the way this game looks. First off, just the world itself is so interesting. The game is split into 2 sections. Headspace, which takes place in the main character's imagination, and the real world, which takes place not in the main character's imagination. I probably didn't need to explain that. And I mainly want to talk about Headspace during this part because it's so interesting and good looking. Because it's someone's imagination, they really go all in on the wackiness. The sky has random shapes in it, there's random objects scattered everywhere. One of the main antagonists is a donut, which only makes a little more sense if you've played the game, and there's photorealistic chickens because why not? Everything here is just unapologetically weird, and that's what I like about it. It's also just so colorful. Not a single part of the color wheel goes unused in this game. Hell, the first room basically had them all. It's such a vibrant world that I want to explore it. I want to see its secrets. The different locales of each area is great too. You start off with just a normal forest, but then you go to the moon, then a castle, then a whole underwater casino, then inside a whale, and that's not even mentioning all the small areas in between. This game always has something new waiting for you, and I love that about it. None of it fits together, yet it all fits together at the same time. Another thing that really helps is the music. I think, besides Undertale, this game has my favorite soundtrack of all time. Pretty much every song fits its situation perfectly, and I love so many of them. Some of my favorites, just off the top of my head, include By Your Side, Good Morning, and It Means Everything. So yeah, the world is great, but that means nothing without good gameplay. And while I've seen some people say the gameplay isn't all that great, I couldn't disagree more. I mean, I beat the game like 15 times, clearly something hooked me. Well, that would be the battle system. Now, I don't want to get into all the intricacies of the battle system, otherwise we'd be here all day, so I'll limit my thoughts to it's really good. And that's weird, because I usually don't like turn-based RPGs. Please ignore how my previous favorite game of all time was a turn-based RPG, okay? Undertale doesn't count. On the surface, it may seem similar to something like, say, Final Fantasy. You've got your multiple party members, attacking, items, special moves, it's all here and accounted for. But Omori makes a few key decisions that I think boost its fun factor significantly. The main ones are the emotion system and the follow-up system. Again, I really don't have time to explain all of these in full detail, but it would be wrong to not at least explain them a bit. Honestly, I can't do a better job explaining the emotion system than the game does in this graph. It just about nails it. Happy beats angry, angry beats sad, and sad beats happy, with each emotion also coming with their own upsides and downsides. To simplify it, angry is when you want to be offensive, sad is when you want to be defensive, and happy is for when you want to be a gimmicky son of a bitch. Now that might seem simple on paper. I mean, Pokemon has what, 18 different types and this game has 3? Well, while that may be true, I often find Pokemon to be the simpler game. Of course, that is just me. Competitive Pokemon has proven there's a lot of depth to these games, but personally when I play, I find myself just picking the strongest move and calling it a day. Not in Omori. Each enemy has a completely different way you have to take them down. This especially applies to bosses, who each come with so many different gimmicks you could drown in them. Meanwhile, a boss in Pokemon just boils down to, do you have the right type / a high enough level Pokemon? You do? Okay, cool, here's the badge. So yeah, I think the emotions were a major success. There's also follow-up moves, which are luckily easier to explain. Each time a party member takes damage, this bar goes up by 1. You can spend 3 points to do a follow-up move, usually just some extra damage, or you can save up 10 to do an ultimate move, which gets stronger as you progress through the game. This adds a ton of depth. Oftentimes, you need to wait until you've been hit a bunch before executing your real strategy. If you're really proficient in how the AI of the game works, you can even manipulate the enemy to use certain attacks at certain points to build it up faster. Now granted, that's only if you've played the game like 50 times and know every little thing about it, but still, it's cool that that's an option. So yeah, the combat has a surprising amount of depth. If you want an example of how far this can go, look no further than the Kel nuke. Okay, so basically, Kel has a move that attacks based on his speed stat rather than his attack stat. Knowing this, you can give him coffee, an item that boosts speed, make him happy, boosting his speed even more, make the opponent angry so it does more damage, and flex the turn before his Kel to increase damage further. Then sit back and watch the oh my god, they're just dead. Wow. This trick is so famous that it was actually referenced in-game. In the console ports of Omori, they added an option to do the boss rush with an extra character, Basil. If you do this, your regular party members will fight you at the end. Here they do, well, exactly what I described, using his speed stat move to obliterate you. This makes the fight incredibly hard. He basically insta-kills you if you don't find a way to debuff him. It's hilarious. I'm honestly a big fan. There's more I could say, but I decided to keep this part fairly short since it's really hard to convey why a game's gameplay is good without you just playing it. Plus, there's plenty more I like about this game. For example, something I don't see appreciated enough, the horror. Yes, this is a horror game, even if I kind of forget that sometimes. Not that it's ineffective, just that horror isn't the game's main focus, unlike most other horror games whose sole goal is to scare you. This game's horror is great because it hardly ever has jump scares, being much more subtle. In fact, the only jump scare I can think of is at the end of the boss rush with Basil. To be fair, yeah, this jump scare kinda sucks ass, but hey, every game gets one cheap shot, so I'll let it slide. Every other moment of horror in this game is much better though. For example, oh god, I need to explain a bit of story for this to make sense. Okay, basically all you need to know is that you play as Sunny and have a world inside your head called Headspace, and you traverse this world through Omori, this fully monochrome version of yourself. The point of the game is you being disconnected from this dream world, but there's an alternate route where you stay in your dream world, content to let the rest of the world disappear. And here's where one of the most chilling shots happens. It's at the end of this route when you check the bathroom mirror. You're no longer you. You've been sucked so far into this dream world that you no longer recognize yourself as Sunny. You just are Omori. Now this isn't the first time the game uses the bathroom mirror for horror, it actually does it quite a lot, including Jesus Christ, but I think this instance is by far its most effective implementation. Just the fact that there's nothing inherently scary about it, it's just a black and white version of yourself, but the implication is chilling. One more example of this that no one finds cool but me, throughout the game you can find white eggred orchids. I probably butchered that name. Every time you interact with one it says, a white eggred orchid. In the language of flowers, it symbolizes the phrase, my thoughts will follow you into your dreams. The language of flowers actually comes up fairly often because of Sunny's friend Basil, so this is a nice way to let you know Sunny listens and cares. Now I don't have footage of this because it's so specific and I didn't feel like playing through the 30-hour game to get 1 millisecond of footage, but once again on the route where you ignore everything and live in your dream world, near the end you can find one, and it says, a white eggred orchid. And that's it. It's just, it sounds so stupid when I put it like that, right? It's just a singular text change, it's barely even different. But I don't know, something about it just gets to me. You're forgetting your friends, the things they've said to you, putting up a wall so you never have to face reality. Now of course there are actual scary moments too, the entirety of Black Space is a great example of that, but those aren't the moments I really love. It's always the small stuff, the blink and you'll miss it details, that really get to me. That's probably just me though. So, what else does this game have? Well, secrets for one. Yeah, this game has a ton of just random little things that you're not likely to notice on a first or even second or third playthrough. One of the best examples of this is through the WTF value, which is just like Undertale's fun value, which if you don't know what that is, then that sentence just confused you more. It's basically a number that gets assigned at the start of the game and can cause random events to happen. In Omori, all of them are pretty minor, in fact most of them you wouldn't even know it was a rare event unless someone told you, like the simple roach in the kitchen. This is a rare event, or the Roman cow. Again, rare event. Not all of them are as silly, unfortunately, like this one where a demon is in your mom's bed. They're all fairly minor though, and don't have gameplay ramifications, which is fine. There's a lot more secrets though. So many that at one point I plan to make an Omori secrets video, similar to Cybershell's Banjo and Kazooie secrets video. I scrapped it because I realized I'm not built enough to do a video like that, but that doesn't mean these secrets are really cool still. Like the use of the number 143. If you don't know, that number means I love you, since I is 1 letter, love is 4 letters, and you is 3 letters. This appears a ton throughout the game. For example, Aubrey's birthday is the 143rd day of the year, something in the dark deals 143 damage as its final attack. In the fight against the hanging body, it also deals 143 damage. A neutral doom box gives you 143 XP, that's probably just a coincidence. Mary's defense in her boss fight is also 143. If you wait here for 143 seconds, you'll get sent to the docks. Don't worry about that, that's kind of its own thing. Wolf a reward hero with 143 claims at one point. Several things in the game are labeled internally with 143. The point is there's a lot. That's not even all of them. I mean, even the official merch page isn't safe. The Meadow plush has 143 written on it in dust. Stuff like this is just so interesting to me. Like, realistically, there's no way one person is gonna find all this. In fact, I'm sure at least one person watching this video was shocked by how many instances there are, because the game doesn't shove it in your face. If I had to describe this game in one word, it'd be amazing, but if I had to use a better word, I would use subtle. None of the horror, the secrets, any of it is in your face. It always forces you to do it yourself, and I really admire that about it. Okay, the last thing I want to go over before we get to major spoilers territory is how charming the game is. Now, unlike good gameplay or good horror, it's a bit harder to define what charm is. It's gonna be different for everyone based on what you find funny or endearing. All I know is that, for me, this game really struck a chord. I mean, this game made me laugh so many times. Granted, I'm an easy person to make laugh, but still, it's a funny game. There are of course things like Pluto, a buff planet who acts as your fast travel system and who you later fight where he becomes ultra buff. But there's a lot of smaller ones too. Again, with those blink and you'll miss it moments, they always get me more. For example, every single toilet in the game gives you ramen when you interact with it. Like why? Whose idea was that? Or my personal favorite, when these two characters are about to kiss and the game just censors it. That's so dumb. Okay, one more. If you have the highest WTF value, aka the rarest event in the entire game, then this one NPC will change his dialogue from "I'm reading a book about air conditioning, it's very informative," to "I fucking love air conditioning." So simple, so elegant, honestly beautiful. Yeah, I really resonated with this game's sense of humor, which is rare to say about a horror game. But that's not all that comes with charm. Another aspect I love is the characters. And not just the main characters, I love all of them, though I guess I should go over the main characters for completion's sake and for context later. There's Sunny/Omori, the quiet one, perfect for his main character status. There's Mary, Sunny's sister, an overall perfect person whose name is definitely pronounced Mari, but I'm gonna keep saying Mary and you can't stop me. There's Kel, the energetic optimist of the group. There's Hiro, Kel's brother, who is also perfect, a nice counterpart to Mary. There's Aubrey, half whimsical hard-headed girl and half bitch. And then there's Basil. He's the twink of the friend group. Every group has one, and if you don't know who it is, then I have terrible news for you. He's a nervous wreck and also likes photography and gardening, both things that play a surprisingly big role in the game. So that's the main cast, and despite my simplistic descriptions, they're all great. Each and every one of them make it into my list of favorite characters, with Basil being my favorite of all time. If I had to rank the main characters, it'd probably be something like this, though my opinions are constantly changing, so that's probably not true by the time you're watching this. Oh right, I said I'd only mention the main characters briefly. It's not my fault they're such good characters. The side characters are great too. This is mostly seen through the bosses of the game, with characters like Space Boyfriend / husband / ex-boyfriend / ex-husband / just Space Boy, his name changes a lot throughout the game, or Sweetheart, the aforementioned donut, who is just the worst, but in a good way. But my personal favorite character would have to be Whatever, who has a single line of dialogue, which is "I am in need of fat stacks of cash." Truly the most complex character ever seen in media. Unironically though, this design is heat. It's just a bottle with arms and legs. I fuck with them hard. But that's kind of it for characters. Now, time for what I really came here to discuss. That's right, the rest of this was just preamble. From this point onwards, I will be discussing major spoilers, aka the true ending and the plot twist that goes along with it. If you haven't played Omori yet, and anything I said in this video so far was even slightly intriguing, then I would highly recommend you play the game for yourself, or at least watch a playthrough of it. Part of the reason I hesitated on doing this video for so long is the thought that I would be spoiling the ending of the game for at least one person. That's how much I love it. Seriously, I barely scratched the surface as to everything in the game, so don't feel like you don't need to play it just because you watched this video. This game is amazing and it would be a crime to spoil its ending for you. We all good? Alright, so let's talk about the one thing I've neglected in this video. The story. And this is where Omori really shines. Part of what I love about it is how it forces you to piece together everything yourself over time. The game starts in Headspace, this strange place that clearly isn't real. Eventually you do go to the real world and that's when you learn, okay, this is someone's imagination. But why? Why is he doing this? So you play a little more and are eventually taken out of your house to see the town. Here you meet the same people you do in Headspace, but it's clear there are differences. Most obviously, Aubrey had a major design change and is now a bully to Basil. But everyone has differences. It's clear the Headspace versions of each character are the exaggerated, idealized personas of them through someone's mind. In the real world, they're more complex, more traumatized. But why are they traumatized? What went wrong? Well, you learn it pretty early on, but your sister, the arguably nicest character in the game, committed suicide. This broke your friend group apart, leading to everyone being where they are today. And what I love about this is that outside of the photo album, you never really see this friend group together. Think about it. Sure, there's Headspace where you can see the group's full dynamic, but you never really see them all together, like in the real world outside of anyone's imagination. And I think the hardest part of making Omori was how do you make a player miss or care about a character in a friend group they never even see, and I think they nailed it. Mary is my second favorite character in the game, as I said earlier, and what's crazy is that we never even see her, but we see the hole that she left behind. We see how her death affects everyone, changes everyone, it makes you long for something you never had in the first place. Her death is the driving force behind everything in the game. It's why Sunny locks himself in an imaginary world, refusing to interact with the outside. It's partly why Aubrey became such a bully. It's led to Basil being a nervous wreck. Seeing how each character coped and is still coping with her death is honestly heartbreaking. One of my favorite scenes in the whole game is one that unfortunately 99% of players miss. That's because they only made it accessible in one 5-second part of the game that strongly suggests you go somewhere else. Whose bright idea was that? Anyway, it's when you visit Mary's grave with just Kel. He tells Sunny a story about after Mary's death. He says that Hiro became so depressed that he hardly did anything for a whole year. Eventually, one night, Hiro and Kel got into a fight about Mary. After their parents come in and immediately go to comfort Hiro, completely ignoring Kel, this is what finally snaps Hiro back in reality enough to do things. He starts to eat again, make friends. He's not back to normal, but he's at least back in reality. What I love about this scene is not just hearing how Mary's death affected them, but the detail that Kel and Hiro's parents ignored Kel in favor of Hiro. It adds them to the list of shitty parents in Omori, because literally all of them are. Let's do a tally. Sunny and Mary's dad is gone, and their mom decides to leave her emotionally unstable son home alone right before he moves. Great plan, dumbass. See how well that worked out for you. Kel and Hiro's parents are probably the best of the group, but again, they completely favor one of their sons over the other. Both of Basil's parents are never seen, he just lives with a caretaker and a dying grandma. And Aubrey's dad is also absent, while her mother is an alcoholic. Great, literally no one is a good parent here. That almost makes the situation sadder. For most of them, the friend group was their family, and seeing that taken from them hurts. Throughout the game in the real world, you almost see an attempt to rebuild the lost friendship. On the first day, it's just Sunny and Kel, then by the end of the second, Hiro is there, and then on the third, you have a talk with Aubrey, which finally gets her to join you. It's here where we get another one of my favorite scenes, again at Mary's grave, where you all sit down and have a picnic with Mary, as a sad, slowed down version of By Your Side plays. It's so effective. But you may have noticed we only have 4 friends together. Shouldn't there be all 6? Well, no, one of them is fucking dead, but what about the other? What about Basil? He's locked himself in his room and isn't coming out. This is not directly said, but it can be assumed that Basil's grandma died in the hospital that day, and that's why he's so upset. So you, Kel, Hiro, and Aubrey all decide to stay the night to be there for him. You go to sleep, fight against the personification of your demons, don't worry about it, that's kind of its own thing, and then you wake up here. I think from this point onwards, the game is perfect. Seriously, the last hour of this game I would change nothing about. It's absolutely beautiful, and again, I would highly recommend you experience it yourself. You start to pick up photos and place them in a photo album. This may seem weird, but photo albums play a surprisingly big role in the story, so it makes sense in context, just roll with it. Anyway, we pick up the photos in these really creepy settings and... no. Okay, now I don't know how to phrase this delicately, so I'm just gonna come out and say it. Mary, the character we've been told basically the entire game committed suicide? Yeah. In what is one of the biggest plot twists in any piece of media I've seen, it turns out that Mary did not commit suicide. You both were practicing for a recital, got into a fight, and then she got pushed down the stairs in the heat of the moment. Yeah, it turns out that you killed her, and then with Basil's help, framed it as a suicide. Now, it's not like you were secretly evil the whole time. Killing her was an accident, and framing it as a suicide was a desperate decision made by 2 12-year-olds who were freaking the fuck out. But still, no matter what excuses you make, what a fucked up thing to do. And the game doesn't shy away from this, despite what some people may tell you, more on that in a bit. It knows that this action, accidentally killing your sister, framing it as a suicide, and then lying for 4 years, is an insane thing to do. So now, with the truth revealed, you go to see Basil, who we know from the alternate ending is about to kill himself. He doesn't though, and instead you both go insane trying to fight your respective demons. Quite literally, Basil even ends up stabbing out your eye, Jesus. Now you go to this dreamlike scenario of your house, and you get flashbacks to so many moments from back before this all happened. Then, after going down memory lane, again quite literally it's the name of the area, you're where you started. white space. Your final boss is Omori. It's you. It's the personification of your desire to lock yourself away from the world. And no matter how hard you try, you can't kill him. He always refuses to succumb, coming back with a full health bar. If you manage to kill him and bring him back 5 times, he starts to spam the same move that deals a ton of damage and makes you afraid. It's at this point where the fight becomes unwinnable by all accounts. But maybe that's okay. Head to the game over screen. If you choose not to continue, then you'll close. But if you do choose to continue, you'll get up and perform one final duet. The one you never got to. Now, I spent a lot, and I mean a lot of time trying to think of a way to express how much this scene means to me, how much it affected me, and how I think it's the best moment in any piece of media I've ever witnessed. But the truth is, I can't. I think this is a scene you either really emotionally connect with, or you don't. If I could play the entire 2-minute thing right now, I would, but unfortunately I think that would break the pace of this video up too much. So I'm just going to suggest you go and watch it yourself. Even if you've seen it before, which, if my major spoiler warning worked, should be all of you, but I get it, not everyone has 30 hours to kill in a random video game they might not like. But yeah, if you're watching this and haven't seen this cutscene before, I highly recommend it. It honestly still makes me tear up. And I never cry in media, but this one just hits so different that I can't help it. The song, Final Duet, randomly renamed to just Duet later on for unknown reasons, is my favorite song of all time. I don't care how cringe that is, it's the truth. I think it's summed up best by this comment I found. You know a song is good when it makes you remember memories you never had. That's the perfect summation of Omori as a whole, actually. Making you remember and miss something you never had. I guess I should go ahead and finish the game before we talk about this further. You wake up in the hospital because of your fight with Basil. You leave your room and you see 2 paths. One, your headspace friends go to. The other, the dark shadowy Basil seen throughout the game goes to. Even if you choose to follow your headspace friends, there's nothing there. It's time to come clean. No more running away. And this leads to another beautiful scene. One of the most simplistic ones in the game, yet one that makes me feel all the same. And that's Omori. Now that I've discussed the ending, I really quickly want to talk about the message of Omori. What's great about it is that it's very much up to interpretation. The game doesn't come out and slap you across the face with its theme, it lets you prescribe your own meaning to it. However, this has led to some people choosing a less than favorable message. I have seen many people complain that the game glorifies Sunny and Basil's actions too much. That the game is saying they deserve to be forgiven for what they did because, oh, it was an accident. I think if that was the message, I would not like Omori as much as I do. Because to be honest, that message kinda sucks. Not to say people are wrong for seeing that, like I said, it's up to interpretation, but that's not what I see personally. I think if the message of the game was Sunny and Basil deserve to be forgiven for what they did, then the game's last cutscene really did a bad job showing that. Notice how we never get to see Sunny's friend's reaction to the truth. We don't get a scene where they all get in a big group hug and tell Sunny it's alright. Now this could just be open-ended for the sake of it, you know, to spark discussion, but I don't see it that way. I think what the game is trying to tell us is that, to a certain extent, the reactions don't matter. Now, what do I mean by this? Obviously, I'm not saying the characters' feelings are unimportant, but rather there's something more important. Self-forgiveness and honesty. The game is saying that their reactions don't matter because Sunny has chosen to tell the truth, no matter what the consequences are. And above all else, Sunny has chosen to forgive himself and stop running away. Not in an, oh, I did nothing wrong sort of way, but not allowing himself to wallow in his own self-pity and shame. I think this ties back to the Omori fight. In it, he says a lot of different things, including lines like, you loved her and you killed her, and you should just die. This is not only a personification of the dream world he's built for himself, but the guilt he's felt. And notice how Sunny doesn't win the fight. He doesn't defeat his guilt, he loses. But after the duet and the memories of his friends, Omori gets absorbed into Sunny. This isn't saying, yay, he beat his guilt and will never feel bad about it again. It's saying that he has to continue on in his life with the guilt alongside him. Everyone has regrets. Granted, not many have regrets of killing their sister, but still. The point is that through this, you still need to live your life. Shutting yourself in for 4 years and hiding from the world doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help Sunny, it doesn't help his friends, and most of all, it doesn't help Mary. Something that makes me really uncomfortable in a good way is that we never get to hear how Mary would have felt about all this. Because she's dead, it may seem obvious, but I like that the game never makes it clear how she would have felt. Maybe she would hate Sunny's guts and want him dead. Maybe she would forgive him immediately and only wish the best for him. The best bet is for something in the middle, but I can tell you for sure what she wouldn't want. She wouldn't want Sunny to continue to live in Headspace, ignoring his problems and his friends. Because again, that doesn't help anyone. So, at least in my opinion, that's what the message of Omori is. You need to learn to live with your regrets, and to be honest, even if it may leave you with nothing. And with that, I think that's everything I really needed to say. Don't get me wrong, there's a ton of stuff I could go over. In fact, this video started life as a 10-hour long retrospective on every little thing in the game. But I realized I don't need to do that. Most of that would be boring summation, and honestly my hope with this video is to inspire one person, at least one person in the world, to go play Omori. And I think this video is more likely to do that than a 10-hour retrospective ever could. Thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry if this video was kind of all over the place. Turns out when you don't just summarize a game, it's kind of hard to make things flow together naturally. I hope it was still as enjoyable to watch as it was for me to make though. I've been holding in these thoughts for over a year now, and finally getting the chance to lay it all out was honestly amazing. I already said it, but I can't thank you guys enough. The fact that there are people willing to watch me ramble about a video game I like, there's no better feeling. That's all. Until next time, I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.